So when we're talking about skills building and development, and the things we're expecting to see in your application, it might be the cost of mentoring and coaching. It could be the cost of shadowing and partnering with other promoters, events, or festivals. It could be attending workshops, masterclasses, and conferences in the UK. Maybe training, including DE and I training and support relating to sustainability, accessing legal advice or accounting services, or, of course, bespoke support identified as important to the applicant. So these are a few examples, but it's really whatever you think is going to help you build your skills and network. And that's what we are talking about today. So I'm delighted to welcome Anna Moulson as my guest for this evening to chat through her own career and some of the skills building and networking that has gone on over the years. So Anna, hello, nice to have you with us. Do you want to give yourself a more rounded introduction and tell us a little more about the hats you wear with the IAP especially, and of course with your own business?
Yeah, sure. Lovely to be here. Lovely to have this opportunity to speak to you all. I'm a live music promoter and freelance, so I hire a lot of venues in Brighton and also in Kent. I do about 60 shows a year. I mainly sort of hire 50 capacities to 500. I've got quite a niche, a slice of the pie in Brighton. Brighton's a very busy live music city. And I've been working as a live music promoter for, well, over 20 years now. And I also teach about live. I've written courses and I teach at BIM. So I teach a lot of young people about developing their live knowledge and developing their sort of professional aspirations and finding the right job for them. I also hire out a church venue in Brighton for more sort of bespoke kind of creative touring artists, and I also help co-chair the trade body for live music promoters in the UK. So we've got about 150 members, mainly on the grassroots, but some people do stadium shows, people all up and down the UK. And we have like network groups and support, and we're pretty much sort of a voice piece to government and to Live, which is an umbrella group that kind of looks after all the trade bodies in the music industry and makes sure that the kind of the concerns and the developments are being made within the industry, because it's such an amazing, thriving industry for the UK economy, and is really envied across the world, which is quite a nice position to be in. And it's quite nice to be in a position where I've actually made a career out of something that I love, because I imagine a lot of you out there have got the basis of a love and a passion for music, and just really would like the opportunity to get involved, and that's why you're here today.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be obviously linking everything back to you know, the application process and the fund itself for the Early Career Promoter Fund. And this session is really about how you would build your skills and network and the kinds of things that you might consider putting on your application. But it just helps to talk about your journey, Anna.
Yeah.
And, looking back to the start, what made you decide that, you wanted to work in this field?
I've just had such a passion for music, and I would go to a lot of gigs from an early age, and I started to help out some grassroots promoters, maybe you call them DIY promoters, and they were putting a lot of gigs on in a little room above a pub in Newcastle where I was at university, and I just got a real buzz out of there's all the people that you meet and helping out on the door. And I just sort of thought, actually, I quite enjoy this. And I think I'm quite good at it. And I knew, what I kind of liked in terms of music. And I just wondered whether I could turn it into a job. So I ended up just taking a punt on Brighton, because I knew a lot of northern promoters. I didn't want to tread on their toes. It's all about trying to foster respect and a good network and a good community. And I was quite aware of that right from the start. So I moved down to Brighton, not really knowing anyone. It's just because I'd spent most of my kind of young years in the north of England, and I thought, you know what, I've got to be brave. I've got to see what the south of England's all about. And it looked like it was quite an exciting town on the up. It was a massive, great sort of club dance, you know, free raves, and you know, there was a lot of the music industry seemed to be moving down there, and I just thought it was an opportunity. And at the time, it was quite small, really. There was a few venues and a few promoters, and there was kind of room for me. And it's always good to sort of look at the landscape and go, actually, I don't want to tread on anyone's toes. Is someone already doing it? Are they doing a good job? Maybe there's a niche there. Maybe there's a gap. Um, so really, I just sort of started off promoting local bands and really got into the community there, and made a lot of friends through that, because it's a fantastic business for extending your sort of friendship groups as well as kind of networks for work. And as a result of that, you know, it was a time when for some reason it was just one of those hotspots where a lot of Brighton bands were starting to do quite well, and I kind of grew with them. And I didn't really know too much about the industry. I wasn't quite phased by it because I only knew what I knew. So I think if I knew now what I knew then, I'd probably be a bit kind of find it quite daunting to start with. But you've got to start somewhere. And you know, the artist started to get an agent, which is pretty much the person who looks after the live bookings. I hope that doesn't sound too patronizing if you know about it already, but some people might not. And they look after they have the live performance vision for the artist's career. The manager tends to sort of have an umbrella view on it. So they book hopefully their tours internationally, but definitely in the UK. And as a result, I started to align myself with certain agents that had similar music tastes to me. And that's a really good way to sort of start to look out at the different agencies out there. And, you know, through really these local bands that are doing quite well. So they'd start saying to me, oh, you know, you've got to start dealing with my agent now, Anna. And then the agent would go, well, are you interested in some bands that aren't from Brighton? And I thought, well, you know, I'll try some of that out. So that's how I sort of really kind of built my own kind of bank of artists. Because as a promoter, you like to think that as long as you did a good job on the last show, you'll get the next show. And that's usually the case. There is some sort of loyalty. And, you know, that's how I sort of built my bank of artists, that some of them I've been working with, as I did this last month, for like 20 years, which is really nice because you go on a journey with them, you grow with them. So yeah, so I was a pretty big promoter, but I knew that came with consequences. And one thing I would definitely say if you're thinking of being a promoter is make sure that you work as hard on your promoting as you do on your personal life, because it can get lost in the mix, especially in the sort of busy times, which is spring and early summer and autumn, early winter. So you've just got to be quite a good planner and put things in place, really. So as a result, I sort of felt like I got quite into a lot of, you know, I was starting to promote some very, very big shows up to the Brighton Centre, which is, you know, 5,000 capacity. And I probably was, you know, it was probably before I'd really caught up on my knowledge of understanding the industry. And that's why there's so much resources out there, and there's some amazing courses, and why it's so important to have a mentor, because I eventually got a mentor, and that really helped me understand that kind of level and all the finances and the way you need to negotiate and be at that level. But I realized that, you know, I was happier at the grassroots. My heart was in the grassroots, and I thought, you know what, I can still make a living out of that. It's less competitive, and it's a really quick turnover of loads of bands coming through every year that are amazing, you know, if you kind of, you know, look out for them. So now I've kind of settled down to the sort of 50 to 500 cap. I mean, I absolutely love the 50 cap because there's not much entourage with the artists. You tend to deal with them direct. You get to know them. They're from different countries. You learn stuff about them, and you're kind of really involved with the audience. With the bigger shows, you tend to be more hands off. There's more kind of staff involved, and you're not as directly involved. But I suppose what I've done is I've created a brand for myself, which all you can do out there. You know, I kind of made a scene for what I wanted to be in, if you know what I mean. I made a scene for myself within my brand and a following. So I've got like audience members, you know, you've got to really look after the audience as well as the artists, as well as the venue as a promoter, because all those aspects of people will look out for you if you have a good relationship with them. And I've got a fantastic relationship with all three, really.
Yeah. So you've touched on a lot of things there that we're going to talk about today, which is obviously, you know, what were the key things that helped you on your journey? Like, were there key people? You've kind of mentioned relationships with agents was quite important to establish early on. Relationships with the bands and the artists that you work with was important. Having a mentor, you mentioned, was important. These are all the steps we're talking about today that people might want to consider putting in their applications. Was there any one in particular that really helped to get you from, you know, starting out onto the level that you became promoting on?
Yeah, a few years in, when I started to do bigger shows, there was a guy that I met who was a promoter in London. I just met him by chance because he was coming and doing a bit of work on a venue that I regularly worked with, and he heard about me, and it was the venue was funded, and he just needed to sort of interview me really and see how I found the venue and whether they were supportive or not. And then he took me under his wing and he kind of guided me on, you know, maybe better negotiation with agents on, you know, maybe marketing my shows to a different type of audience, maybe extending the kind of genres that I do, because I was quite into my kind of, you know, certain kind of genres, a lot of kind of, I don't know, noisier bands. And then I started to get into kind of singer-songwriter folk, a bit more experimental stuff. And it just was a sounding board, really. I didn't need him all the time, but he was just there, and it was always good to have that. And he was very willing to sort of part with his knowledge, and also maybe gave me a bit more business sense. I came from a very sort of although I come from a long line of self-employed people, you know, I hadn't been trained in business, and I think that's really important. You've got to really look at that, because you can quite easily just, you know, just race ahead with things and not have your foundations in place.
Mm.
So I did so got some support from Princess Youth Trust. They have even stuff that you don't actually have to contact them. You can go to their website and just get a business plan. But I was borrowing some money off them in order to sort of establish myself a bit more. And they said, well, as part of that, we also need to give you a mentor. So I got another mentor. And also just you need to understand the rudimentaries of business, which I'm so glad they helped me with, because there are some things, and it's not kind of rocket science. It's something that's achievable. You know, it's sort of how to sort of budget, how to sort of do SWOT analysis, which is your strengths, weaknesses, and your threats. How to you know, how to sort of like manage all the things that are quite boring, really. But you've got to do, and I couldn't emphasize enough that you really need to get into finances and budgeting. And these are the sort of organizations that can give you the spreadsheet where you just fill it in. And although it is quite mind-numbing, and it is in the end something that really is your rock, because I do like, it's very difficult to forecast for a year for melting vinyl, but I do 6 months forecasts. I work out how much it costs me a day to run melting vinyl. And these kind of Excels can really help you to do that. And, you know, I have a bit of a portfolio career, which means I do other things as well. So, you know, if I do have situations where melting vinyl's not doing as well, I can kind of try and encourage more work elsewhere, which does help. So with Princess Youth Trust, they gave me a mentor who was a plumber. And but he just knew how to communicate all the basics. He knew what kind of business language was. He knew how to sort of forecast your finances, how to deal with insurance, all those things that are the bedrock, really. I think that promoting attracts a certain kind of person sometimes, and we're very inspired by the music, and we just want to rush ahead and do the event and hang out on the day, and, you know, and just sort of have that kind of element of a sort of job satisfaction. But you will have longevity if you get these things in place. Also, your bank, if you set up a business account, banks can also help you. They have like business departments, and I got help with my bank. And now there's so many courses that you can do. I'm not so sure if there's kind of one-off courses within sort of live. I think that probably needs to be addressed, but there's definitely institutions like BIM that I work at where they take you through 3 years with a degree, or FE, you know, if you're under 18. I'm not sure if there is anyone, but there's various FE colleges as well. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about a mentor. It doesn't necessarily have to be a music industry mentor, could be somebody who has good business sense. But if anyone's on this call thinking, how do I approach an industry mentor? Will they have time to mentor me? How can I start that conversation? What would your suggestions be?
Well, we were talking just before, weren't we, Ben, just about the possibility of, and I'd have to speak to AIP about this, but it's something we spoke before the Association of Independent Promoters, like putting a call out and vetting some people who could be potential mentors. I also, I mean, if you know, go to gigs, there's probably promoters in your local scene that you could just, they're usually on the door if it's like local grassroots. You could go and ask them if you can kind of shadow on a show or talk to them. And, you know, there are, you know, that if you're thinking of going into sort of the kind of more festival world, there's also the Association of Independent Festivals. You can contact them. But yeah, I would say maybe those kind of areas, and also through, you know, the Princess Youth Trust, your bank might be able to align you with someone. I mean, even sort of funding bodies like the Arts Council, and I'm sure PRS as well know of a good body of professional promoters who could help out. I mean, you know, I deal with a lot of young promoters who've had the experience at school and college at BIM. This is where I teach on the degree course, who've had, you know, like lecturers or teachers who have guided them through events. I mean, they're always up for them, and I'm always up for people who have been taught by me to come and get in touch with me and just ask for advice, and they'll be networked up as well. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of, there's quite a few out there, but let's hope we can come up with a list, which I think we probably can through AIP, and I can ask Association of Independent Festivals as well.
Yeah. Absolutely, we'll definitely work on that. And you know, I suppose part of the message of that as well is, you know, don't be afraid to reach out to people. Like you said, turn up at your local grassroots music venues, ask some questions. You know, don't be
Yeah,
afraid to make you know, improve your network. And speaking of such, obviously conferences, we're in the middle of
yeah.
conference season at the moment. Great Escape was just a week or so ago. The importance of conferences and events like that to help build your network. We say in our application we would expect people to be putting funding in there to go to at least one conference as part of their own development. But how have you experienced conferences, and how have they helped you, especially in the early years, to kind of build that network?
Um, I think that I definitely know, just talking about my students again, that by volunteering, and I know that's difficult in this climate because we all have to work quite hard to earn a living now. When I was first starting, I could, you know, work part-time and develop melting vinyl for a few years. But I know that you probably all have to work quite hard and then develop your company on the side, maybe a lot slower, but hopefully if you get this fund, that will help. But so that by volunteering, you sort of, you're directly in contact with people from the industry and conferences and festivals, and then it's amazing. It's like fire. It's your networks grow. It's really just getting in on the inside. But I think in terms of my networks, I probably conferences I've been to, and I have you know, got a delegates pass. I mean, sometimes they've got cheaper rates for younger people, and I've managed to sort of go along to some of the network meetups and things like that. I found them quite daunting, I'll be honest with you. I think as a sort of, especially coming from a bit of a minority group in live, being female, that you know, you know, and I'm also quite a confident northerner, so I really feel fear for the people who've got anxiety as well. And I really recognize that. But you know, there are a few sort of youth groups that are out there that do have their own events as well. I work with Beacons in Wales, and they have, you know, a bit more kind of peer networking that helps you, because I find that what I did is I actually went to gigs and I kind of tried to find the agent away from sort of conferences really, and I built up my networks through the local bands that were starting to do quite well, and they would introduce me to people. And I find that the way that I networked most was to sort of explain myself in emails, and I felt a bit more confident about doing that as well. So I would sort of approach people maybe through knowing a local band who could get me on the in, who maybe had an agent or whatever. But I also know through helping out at various kind of events over the years that I've managed to sort of, you know, start working with people and then feel more comfortable because I've got a position there, and I can just chat to them because I know that I'm kind of validated by my position at that kind of festival, or you know, all dayer, or you know, a live music event really. But I won't say that it's an easy thing to do, but it does, you know, you don't have to do it the most obvious ways, and going into a room of people that you don't know with a load of lanyards on, trying to sort of see who they are, and if, you know, concerned about how they're going to react to you is quite, it's quite daunting. So there are other ways, I would say, but it's just
Yeah.
persistence, you know, especially with emails, and you've got to really have a little bit of something to offer. So I know that it's quite difficult when you're younger sometimes to feel sort of confident and understand the kind of what your selling points are. But, you know, quite a lot of the time in the industry, it's the fact that you're young and that you're connected to your peers. And, you know, you've got to sort of big up yourself, because that's your way in, your only kind of way in, I'd say, or the biggest way in is to be confident about what you have to offer when you're emailing people, and just saying, you know, how they want to know that you're connected to a local scene and that you've got something of offer that's going to be useful for them, you know. And the fact that you're young and, you know, digitally native, up with all social media and the new things that are happening, so that's a real selling point. So don't kind of don't forget to sort of to put that forward. But I would say the main thing I would say is volunteer on something, or get people to introduce you. I think that's the easiest way, but you can do
Yeah.
it the conference way as well. And there's
Yeah.
some great conferences out there, you know. There's Unconvention in Manchester in November, that's for the grassroots. There's Wide Awake that's just gone, which isn't a conference, it's more of a city festival in London, but you could volunteer for that. There's one in October in Wales as well, and then yeah, there's, you know, there's lots of kind of city festivals up and down the country, where you could kind of help out on, and I'm sure that having a mentor could help as well. So yeah, so it's just, you know, there are ways.
Many different ways, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting your experiences of conferences. Some people will thrive in that environment, but I suppose it's why
Mm.
the support on this is bespoke. And if people think that one particular method of network development suits them more, then they can put that in their application.
Mm.
And yeah, we just want to see that people are you know, giving themselves the opportunities to develop themselves while also putting on shows and obviously helping the grassroots
Yeah.
ecosystem.
It's
So
amazing once you get started on a role with an agent. Sometimes I mean, they're a small, tight-knit group of people, as promoters are, and they all know each other, and they kind of recommend people as well, you know. So, and you can ask an agent if you're starting to deal with them, you know, to recommend you. That's something that I do. And I've grown up with a lot of my kind of peers, really, and that's how I've managed to sustain my company, because people who've maybe been dealing with the kind of more DIY local bands and starting to put them on as or have them on their roster, which is, you know, a list of all the artists that an agent has on there who they're developing, and booking tours for, that, you know, they start from maybe a grassroots level like you do, or a real kind of base kind of low. The, you know, the artist doesn't have much profile. the agent doesn't have much profile, the promoter doesn't, and you all start together. So just go on that journey with people. You know, there's agents now that I deal with that deal with some pretty big bands, and they're real, sorry to call this, but you kind of call them your bankers, which I mean, that's how you're going to sort of make your money out of, you know, your business, be able to have a job, and maybe sort of be able to kind of afford to take a few chances on, you know, unknown artists. So yeah.
You mentioned agents in there, and it's something we
Mm,
need to talk about. Managing relationships with agents.
yeah.
I think for many early career promoters, it can be quite daunting to get your
Mm,
foot in the door with agents if you're not established, because they are going to want to know that you've got the credentials to work with them, I suppose. Like, how would
yeah.
you I know there's a second question to this in terms of maintaining relationships with agents, I suppose.
Mm.
Just in terms of getting your foot in the door and establishing yourself with an agent, what would your kind of tips be on that?
Well, the main way I did it was through local bands getting agents, and then they're saying you know, make sure that the bands that you've given a lot of shows for, that you maybe haven't earned much money from, that that they know that once that you want a long-term relationship with them, and that once they've got an agent, they've got to remember to say that you were the promoter for them right from the beginning. Because if you don't do that, the agent just tends to go with maybe the people that they regularly work with. I mean, if they're a good agent, they'll ask the band and sit down with them and say, who do you like working with, you know? But I think persistence, and you haven't got to be put off. You've got to promise me you won't, because I wasn't. And look where I am now in terms of, you know, loving my job and still promoting after 20 years. So don't be put off, because, you know, we're all really busy. And it's an interesting cycle, because I get a lot of touring artists and local bands as well contacting me. I get 150 emails a week of people wanting to do gigs with me, and I'm sure it's the same with the agents. You know, so we're all in that sort of position where it's really hard sometimes to get back to people, and it's not because they're ignoring your email. Most of the time it's because they're very busy and they've just got to deal with the work in hand, and kind of anything else is extra, really. So it's obviously good if you can get introductions, but just persist with emails, and just say you know, you're not going to get anywhere if you just say, oh, I'm a Brighton promoter, can you work with me? Because in Brighton there's about 20 promoters that are kind of doing it regularly as a job. Brighton's such a small city as well, but we have a lot of people coming from all over, and if London show sells out, then people come to Brighton. So you've got to say, you know, I'm a young promoter. I'm, you know, very much established in my local scene. You know, I know how to sort of reach the markets here. I know where to sort of market the shows. I've got a little bit of a following, or I have got a following with what I do. And, you know, I really like, you've also got to say that you like the band, you know, and that you really would like to work with them, and not be over, kind of gushy in a way with that, because you've got to also be a little bit professional, you know. So you've got to kind of say that you very much respect the band, and you can definitely see that you could find an audience for them in your city. You know, you've got to be confident about that, of what you can offer, because if you're not confident, they're not going to be confident about you. I think, remember, once you do get a response, to get back to them. That's the main thing. I mean, some agents will move on within a day. It's a very fast-paced industry. So get back to them, try and get, you know, if they say, oh, can you get the availabilities of dates from a venue, try and get it within the same day, if not the day after. Try and get them an offer, which is the costings, and you know, that's something that a mentor could help you out with. Or I'm sure that there's actually a guide that I was going to tell you all about. And obviously this is more for bands, and I do apologize for the DJs, because DJs is just kind of flat fees and you don't tend to send costings through. But if you have a look at a PDF you can just download on the internet, called Don't Make a Scene, and they've got a section in about budgeting. They've also got a section in about how to approach an agent as well. So also, you know, invest in them the way that hopefully they'll invest in you. It goes both ways. So try and get to a gig that they're of one of their bands. And I was quite lucky to have that fast train that came in 20 years ago from Brighton to London. So I was going to a lot of London shows, and even if you don't meet up with them, they'll go, you came along, you asked to come, and you know, they'll put you on the guest list, and they'll be flattered that you're interested, you know, and they'll go, well, you're making the effort, you know what I mean? And if usually the person on the door knows who the agent, what the agent looks like, but now you can look online as well. So do a bit of research, but just make sure you're up on their roster, you know, because that they will be very flattered by that, and they will appreciate that you're investing in them. So know what their kind of bands are up to. I think you've also just, you know, I would give you a bit of advice about agents. Just make, as with anything, get everything in writing. When you're younger, you just tend to sort of go, oh yeah, well, we've got a mate's deal and we're going to do it this way and we'll do it vocally, but get everything in writing in terms of what's been agreed. Also stand your ground. Don't, you know, if you're going to offer on a show, you know, and you're not confident they're going to sell it out, don't offer on a sellout in terms of the list of costings you need to do. I mean, if you're unfamiliar with that, you know, then I would ask your mentor about that, because we tend to do, I don't want to blow your mind too much, but we tend to do versus deals in UK and live, which is, you know, you offer an amount of money for the artist, and if after costs there's money left over, you kind of take 80% of that and see whether it's bigger than your offer that you've made, and then you go for the 80%, you know. But you don't have to do offers on sellouts. Some agents will understand that you're being realistic, so you could do it on 3/4 of the capacity. You know, and so don't think when an agent says, oh, they need this money, some of them can be quite hard-nosed. Some people, you have to be sometimes in business, and they are all about getting the money for the artist. You know, just maybe sort of think of, you know, realistically with your local knowledge, trust your local knowledge. You've got to start trusting your sort of your kind of your instincts and your history, and maybe go for a bit lower than that. You know, also look at where they're playing around the country, and you can always contact the promoter through their website, or through, if you do decide to join AIP, if you're serious about promoting, you can ask, you know, some of our members, how's it done up and down the country. You know, you can also ask the agent. I just ask them now, you know, what did they do in London? And Brighton's usually a quarter of what London does, you know. So have a look at that. You can also see, I mean, Facebook's a bit old hat now, but people still do use it. It's for a certain generation, really, isn't it? And you can see with the event how many people said they were going, and it's usually half or 3/4 who actually went. Don't say, oh gosh, there's like 150 people there. Go, oh, 50 or 75 or 80 went to that. You can sort of tell by that. But just, you know, when you get in with a good relationship with the agent, you can sustain that by, you know, being a good payer, pay the week after the show, the day after the show if you can, you know, keep in communication with them, be very positive about their artists, you know, after the events happened, you know, say, oh, it went down really well, hopefully they did, and, you know, I look forward to working with you again. And, you know, just you've got to be the one who is constantly sort of saying to them, oh, what have you got coming up? You know, as soon as you see an artist like about to do an album release, or building up to doing an album, start asking the agent, oh, you know, what's happening with that? I mean, one other way I've actually forgot that I just remembered is I also used to try and sort of network with record labels, and they are very close to the management, and the management and the record label are have quite an influence on the agent as well. So they sometimes, and if you do get to know the labels, so I kind of grew up with some small labels in Brighton and, you know, and London, like Domino and Bella Union, and they've recommended me over the years to agents and managers as well, because they sit down at the beginning of the tour and go, right, you know, when are we going to release this album with the label? And then the agent and the manager go, okay, we'll do it in that period, so it aligns for the same time. And then they also go, well, you know, who does the band like working with, hopefully, and which territories, which cities, towns do you want to go to? The thing that's happening at the moment, which is quite tough, but, you know, stand your ground a bit and prove your city, is that there's a lot more tours that are coming through that tend to just hit, they're called the A-list cities and the B-list, which are your Glasgows and your Manchesters, and the A-list, and the B-list are your Brightons and your Leeds and your Bristols. I work in a probably B/C list town, Folkestone. And I got brought in there to sort of try and encourage an audience there and try and get people to come to Folkestone and use my contacts in the industry to get a kind of focus there. So I do have to kind of constantly remind the agent of why Folkestone's so cool. You know, it's on the way out to Europe, kind of covers the whole of Kent. It's a lively, arty town. There's a lot of people moving there. So, you know, you just got to be a bit of a hustler and sell your city, sell yourself, you know.
Sure. You mentioned a few things there that are interesting. Obviously, you discussed deal types and the various different deal types, and you know, it's what we didn't say earlier is that there's wraparound support will be attached to the fund here, and there will be master classes on different types of deal types. If any of that didn't make sense, then you know, it's part of this package is to help develop your knowledge of deal types. And also, of course, you mentioned don't budget on sellout, and that's what we say with your applications here. You know, we're looking for you to do a break-even budget so that your budget balances, but you shouldn't do that on a sellout because then obviously there's a chance there you'll lose money. So we hope that you will make a profit, but we do ask that you budget sensibly on your show so that you are aiming to break even on a modest estimate. You mentioned AIP there as well. So let's just talk about that quickly before we take some questions. Co-chair of the AIP, it's great to have you here. Tell us a bit more about it and how it supports its network and your time working there.
Well, I joined just before COVID hit, and it had been going since 2014. It was a bunch of promoters who got together and they just wanted to sort of like create a network amongst UK promoters. They wanted to create a kind of a mark of standards within promoting. And in recent years, myself and a guy called Luke, Jukebox Live, who's a promoter in the southeast as well. He and I have been trying to put the foundations together we're quite a fairly young trade body. So there's quite a few trade bodies all, you know, that deal with various aspects of the industry, and we basically a voice piece and a network in trade body for promoters. Some of them are also run venues and in-house as well, because there's lots of different types of promoters. There's freelance like myself, there's in-house, there's DIY, there's hobbyists who people just have a regular job and just do it as a kind of hobby, really. We've got 150 members, like I said, UK wide. We have a WhatsApp group. We have now, hopefully, we're establishing ourselves with a couple of meetups. Being a northerner, I'm very conscious that everything's very southeast focused. And we have a meetup at the Great Escape, which we've done historically. And that's a lovely way to meet people face to face. And that could be a way that you could sort of find your mentors as well. Obviously, the next one's May 2025, but we are looking to come to Unconvention as well. And if you do come and you do decide to join up, you can just join up through the website. You have to sort of be fairly confident that you're going to be a promoter and you're going to turn it into a business, and you know that you're a fair few shows in, and you know, we kind of sign people up through the form that people fill in through the website. And then we are also a voice piece of government. So we've been quite instrumental in the grassroots inquiry, which is just amazing that that's happened. You know, the value of the grassroots and the value of us as promoters is recognised by a government committee, and they put lots of, we had our kind of voice heard there in terms of our concerns and issues, as well as the Music Venue Trust. It was all about how venues are kind of, you know, seen quite rapidly closing over the years and seeing a trend for it. And so they did an inquiry into, well, what's happening within the grassroots. And also in the future, we're hoping to do mentoring sessions. We're hoping to do some training in the 4 or 5 areas that you focus on as a promoter: the marketing, the production, the budgeting, the programming, and you know, other sort of miscellaneous areas. And we're hoping to also create a report. I'm also hoping to put together a diversity database for agents as well, because I'm very conscious that we're in a minority, you know, in terms of you know, anyone who's not who's non-white male, who, you know, there's a lot of balance that needs to be struck. I mean, there's room for everyone, I think, but you know, we just need to sort of look at why we don't have more diversity. So, you know, really moving forward, I see a lot more people trying to come through who are, you know, making us look more diverse within our job sphere, which is great. So I hope that's quite a few people on this call as well.
We hope so, because that is obviously one of the purposes of the
Yeah.
fund, to try and redress that underrepresentation. And I think if
Mm.
we dug into why that was in the promoter game, that'd be a whole nother session. But
Yes, yes, it would.
so we won't go too far. But yeah, the fund is there to support everybody, as all the PRS Foundation funds are, to make sure that there's a diverse array of talent organisations and individuals working in the industry. And back to the AIP, it's completely free to join
Yeah,
at the
it's
moment.
free to join.
How would people find out more or join at this stage?
Well, they can just go through the website, fill the form in. You know, we like to see that you've got kind of a business name set up. You've got an Instagram account, that you're doing a few shows. So if you apply that way, and then you find out within a matter of sort of a few weeks, really. I mean, it's sort of we look through them, we sort of vet them through our board, and you know, just make sure that you know, we've got great people coming through, really, and that we could support you. So yeah. So that's quite easy. Just go to the AIP, I think it's AIP.org maybe, website. So it's Association of Independent Promoters. And you can see there's a whole list on our website of other promoters. You know, maybe try and see what you're trying to do, and see if there's someone similar in another city maybe, and they can always kind of help you out, and you can maybe meet up with them at festivals, because a lot of us go to festivals, a lot of us go to conferences, you know, or you can even hopefully Ben and Hannah use the money to maybe travel somewhere and go sort of see someone and meet up with them.
Absolutely. Anna, it's been really useful to talk to you. I hope so for those that are considering applying. Do feel free to type any questions into the thank you, Hannah, that's very worthy as well. Just put the Association of Independent Promoters link in the chat. If anyone does have any questions, either about the fund itself or of course on Anna's experience, then please feel free to raise a hand. You should be able to find that in the more section, or feel free to type some questions into the box. It would be nice if there were any.
Do I have to raise my hand virtually? I can't find it. Can I just ask?
Chris,
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
No problem.
So I don't want to put you on the spot, but I also run sometimes 50-person gigs, and I'm just wondering how on earth you can make a living running gigs with 50 people. So I don't know what magic you're doing there, but I'd love to know.
I mean, I kind of budget for them not to have money coming back into my company to pay for my wage, but I usually have elements of production and marketing. You know, it might just be 20, 30 quid, 50 quid to go back in if the show's successful and sells out, that can kind of go towards the costs of the marketing and the costs of the production. So just make sure that you've got those in there, but they're really not going to be I mean, I'm VAT registered, so that's a whole new game of sort of 20% of the income being taken out, which was a big issue in the grassroots inquiry, and hopefully that's going to change. But I understand that, you know, when you're starting out, your peers are probably your audience, and they don't want to pay more than 5-6 quid, and how do you make a living out of that? I mean, good relationships with venues eventually, you know, and you know, beg, stealing and borrowing. So sometimes I have to provide backline, and I just ask local bands to help me out in return for free tickets for shows. Making sure your guest lists are really minimal. You know, guest lists are such a killer sometimes for you to make an income, you know, really stop you making an income as a promoter. But there, you know, you can have some contribution to your overall cost, but I would admit that on that level it's very difficult to make your money. Yeah. So it might be that further on, when you start building with the artist, that's when you make your money. So you've just got to hold tight really with it, which could take, you know, a year or so really. It took me, you know, 5 years to establish myself, but, you know, I was a young female promoter, not really inexperienced, very green. And it wasn't until I reached out for help that I kind of accelerated my possibility of turning it into a profession and an income making, viable business, really. So I hope that answers your question, really, Chris. I think you probably knew the answer.
I mean, yeah, that's great. I've got some other questions, but I'll let everyone else shoot
Okay.
first. But thank you.
We've got one in the chat here. Thank you, Chris, from Kian. It says, do you need experience in running more than one event to be a successful applicant? We do ask that you are not completely new to promoting. So we are expecting people to have, promoted at least a handful of events on a small scale. You do not have to be extremely promoter, but extremely experienced promoter, but you should have promoted at least one or two shows. There's an opportunity within the early sections of the form to explain why you think you would require more support. We don't render you ineligible if you, for example, only promoted one show. But we are transparent in the advice that we expect to be awarding the grants to people who have at least promoted a handful of shows. Likewise, we expect not to be awarding the grants to those who we deem to be experienced promoters, but you'd get the opportunity just to off-road slightly if you feel that you, for example, promoted quite a lot of shows and you're not in folk music, for example, but you're moving into promoting DJs and you consider yourself an early career promoter in that genre, then you've got the opportunity to explain that. But certainly there's an opportunity on the application form to say, even if you think you don't quite hit the mark, why you think that the fund would be good for you. Rebecca, when you say the fund can help with legal or accounting services, does this mean to get mentors to teach us what we need to know, or can we use it to pay people to just do things for us? So I would treat these as two different things. I think you could put a fund in there to help with mentors, and you could assign a separate fee for anything that you need in terms of legal framework or accounting services. So you might put in your application, for example, the cost of a mentor for a music industry mentor for 4 sessions, for example. But you may also put in there consultation with an accountant if you want to learn more, if you feel you need more development, for example, cash flow. Then that might be something you put in separately. Likewise, in terms of legal framework for you as your small business, you can put an amount in that will help with that. So I would treat legal, accounting and mentors as two different areas of development. I'm going to go to Stephen because I saw the comment in the chat first. Stephen D.
Yeah, thanks.
Go ahead.
Anna, thank you as well for your time. Thank you. I appreciate the input you've given us today. My question is, so I work in a charity and we support young people getting into work, and we have a studio space which we allow young people to come and use our facilities. And one of the programs we've been running for the past 3 years is where they come in and work on different pieces of music, and we do an event at the end of it. So on that cohort, we have 10 young people, 8 of them create music, and then you've got 2 event managers, content creators, whatever you kind of want to call it, but we're going to call it event managers because they do kind of set up the event for us, for the other young people to perform. It was kind of a question off the back of what Keon asked, because do you need experience? Now, these young people, when I say young, we're talking between 16 and 25, but the average age is like 20 years old. These young people may not have done an event before or hosted an event, but we've been working together for the past 10 weeks on this program. And that's why I'm even involved in this. I saw the fund being sent through to me, and I thought it would be a great way for us to kind of look at how we can give these young people some extra support. We've done events before as an organization, so we'll definitely support them with it. But I think it's about just understanding if we would be able to apply on behalf of these young people to then give them the support to deliver the work that we're looking to do.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, firstly, the fund, because it's funded by Arts Council, it is for those 18 plus. So I'd start as that as a marker. Obviously, you will be aware that youth music is a great funder for those under 18s for various different programs. To reflect on your question, I think we do say in the application that, do you have transferable and relevant skills that could make you an early career promoter if you don't have that show experience. So I think there is the opportunity to state that on the form and put your application forward. I think one of the things I would, we're trying to make the eligibility as open as possible on this. We're trying not to exclude anybody or very few people, because we're it's obviously a new fund. It's an important fund for us to get right, and we want to see what applications are out there and who is the most in need of support and at what level we can offer that support. So there is the opportunity to state why you think transferable skills could make somebody an early career promoter. So I wouldn't say that the examples you gave would be ineligible, other to say than those 18 plus would be eligible. Does that help?
Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks for that. Really appreciate that.
No problem.
Do you think, Ben, if the few of them have done different gigs, that they could come together with a collective and sort of pull their resources? Because that's, when students first start putting gigs on that I deal with at the college that I work at and the university, they collectively do it together, and that gives them a lot of support.
It's a great shout. It's we are open in our classification of independent, and we allow people to self-identify as early career promoters and self-identify as independent. We'd expect normally that wouldn't be in a sort of collective of more than three, but if it's in the case of three young promoters coming together to collaborate, I think that's we wouldn't look at that badly at all. I think that'd be a great shout, Anna. I'm going to go to Peter. We've got 2 more minutes, Peter, and I want to get to Max's question as well. So, Peter.
Hiya, sorry. Anna, when you say going to gigs and talking to the promoters there and talking to them, what do you actually do to find the promoter of the gig?
Well, the person doing the box office normally knows, or is normally the promoter on a grassroots level. So I would ask them, the person who's kind of dealing with the ticketing. So,
Okay,
that's the way you can find them. Also ask behind the bar. Most of us who regularly worked in venues for years the bar staff and the staff in the venue know us. So, I mean, sometimes on a higher level, the promoter's not always there, but on a grassroots level, the promoter tends to be running the shows, or paying someone else to run the shows, and they turn up a bit later. So yeah, ask them on the door. I mean, you can always preempt it with going to the website. We've got an email address for Melting Vinyl. You can email in and just say, look, I'm thinking of coming along, and I just would like to sort of understand the industry a bit more. I mean, be careful as well what you say, because sometimes I'm teaching people at BIM and they go, oh, I'm really looking forward to doing a business just like Melting Vinyl in Brighton, and you're like, I'm not training you up to be in competition, but so you get the just use your words carefully. But even if you don't get a reply, I'm sure somewhere along the line they'll recognize it and thought, oh, I wish I could have got back to them. And then you can see them face to face. As soon as you see someone face to face, things just seem to just develop a lot better, but it's always good to do an email. So I hope that answered your question, Peter.
Yeah, brilliant.
Look online as well, you can find out probably what they look like, so
Okay. And if the promoter's not there, they'll likely have a rep there. Somebody there will, the rep will know, be able to connect to you. Just to quickly rattle through a couple of these questions. A DJ collective of 3, says Max, with the ultimate goal of promoting club nights together. Can one of us apply to benefit from the fund? We would ask only one of you to make the application if you are a collective. Obviously, if you are unsuccessful, then you will get the opportunity to apply again. You can apply up to 3 times. There are 9 deadlines for this fund. You will not really be allowed to apply the following month unless there are particular time constraints on your application, i.e. the night you're trying to put on is 12 weeks away, then we may allow you to go again. But no, only one person should apply for one event. Yeah, I hope that helps. Where can the recording for the last session be found? Good question, Chris. It is on our website. If you go to the Early Career Promoter Fund, it is embedded on there. If you go to the eligibility, there's a little drop-down menu that says video guidance. You can click there. I believe, Hannah, it's also on the YouTube page. I'm not sure if you're aware or not.
Not sure about that one just yet, but it's definitely on our website.
It certainly will end up there, but it's, yeah, embedded on the website. Great. Okay, just to quickly round off, I will just say thank you very much to Anna. Your knowledge and expertise has been excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's been lovely sharing that with you all. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you. Just a reminder quickly of the Early Career Promoter Fund deadlines. The first one is June the 13th. We do have one more session coming up before then. If you do have more questions, there it is. It's a 1 hour Ask Us Anything Q&A with myself, and we can answer any last minute questions for those drafting those applications, which will be due in the next 3 days when it gets to June the 10th. If you do have further questions, then we are available on email at applications@prsfoundation.com. So if you didn't ask a question, something comes to you later on, please do ask away then. And that is about it. So thank you once again to Anna. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks to everyone for joining, and good luck with those applications. Please do ask if you do have any more questions, and have a good evening. Thank you.